Les grandes équipes, the champions. Welcome back to Instant Reaction on the Cannon Podcast. One day, we'll start an instant reaction actually instantly. But have a guess what delay does, guys. Have any guesses?
No, I'm. You know what? I've tried here. It's a work
No.
thing. What can we do? It's impossible here. Okay, guys. I've been able to come here. It's a work day, so I will take it.
It was the tech. It was the tech issues, guys. It's
Really
always there.
was.
It's
I
always
don't know
there.
if people can fix this for me. My computer has this weird habit sometimes of not allowing my camera to access, and I have to restart everything, and that's what fixes it. It's like the classic old man restart.
Yeah,
Okay?
people in the chat were saying, "Is George turning it off and turning it on again?" And I was like, "He's coming. I was like,
Literally what
basically,
happened.
yes, he was." Right, let's stop talking tech issues and start talking Arsenal. Yeah, good win, comfortable win in Champions League against PSG. Yeah, lots of places we could go with this. I think just sort of starting with some overall thoughts. As always, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. As always, we're here for half an hour after every Arsenal game, or almost every Arsenal game. Yeah, look, what's really exciting, I suppose, from a wide angle lens to start us off, is I came into this game expecting a comfortable game against PSG. And if you'd said that to me 2 years ago, I would have bitten your hand off. And we came in, we looked really solid. We'll come into sort of the tactical side of things, but from an overall perspective, that was what I expected. And I come away from it going, yep, good win. And we move forward. But actually, if we take a step back against a side of this quality with this much investment, a European giant, I think in a certain way, it shows us how far we've come. That for me personally, I'm sat there going, yeah, good.
Well, you know what it is, mate. It was men against boys in the first half, and we did our business and sat back, and was able to soak pressure. And Arsenal became the big brother. And I think the biggest transformation and probably the best compliment you can make to the boys is it literally looked like men versus boys, not just in terms of the physical stature, but the way that we competed in midfield. I think that PSG, for all their technicality, couldn't string together passes or really exploit much of Arsenal's in behind. Barcola was in incredible form, and Timber just locked that up. We have such flexibility, and we really looked like the dominant team. And of course, you would sit there and say, okay, you're at home in the Champions League. That's something that you should be expecting at minimum. But this is PSG. For me, mate, this is a landmark European win, something that Arsenal and Arteta, by the way, can't boast. We don't do well in Europe. So to sit there, I really think that we're underselling ourselves if we don't talk about how impressive this is against this PSG team, who are young themselves, inexperienced, but still have a coach that has been there and done it. And for me, that first half was brilliant. It really showed quite a bit of gusto. I think there was a lot of really good performances. Thomas Partey turning back the years. Yep. I think he had an incredible performance anchoring the midfield. I think Kai Havertz was very aggressive running the channels. Gabriel, an absolute defensive icon for me throughout the entirety of the match. And what more can we say about Bukayo Saka leading the boys out? There's not enough talk about Saka and the superstar that he is.
You look different this evening.
Make 9 goals and assists in 6 Champions League matches, but oh no, I got to wait till he's in the Champions League to confirm his world-class status. I'm sorry. It's just stupid. And, he's turning into something. He's turning into a superstar before our eyes. And mate, I remember saying this in the summer, half of the growth of this young team is going to be watching them believe that they're the superstars that they are. And you're seeing it. And I just thought,
yep,
mate, I'm smiling. I don't know. I have a lot of stuff to say. I'm looking at the team and I'm just smiling that we've done it on the European stage against a global elite in a big match.
Yep. Only according to Squawker, only Harry Kane with 16 and Vinny Jr. with 10 have been involved in more Champions League goals since the start of last season than Bukayo Saka. And remember, Harry Kane's involved in those 9-0 games that Bayern get involved in. So let's chill out with him. Yeah, I think he looked really. I want to come to him sort of on an individual basis maybe a little bit later, but I thought it looked different this evening. His first action where he cuts inside and Timber's on the overlap, he always plays that pass, always, especially at the start of games, and he took a shot, and I was going, okay, mate. Yeah, look, I'll repeat what I said. A really, really comfortable win. I'm really happy with how we approached the game. I thought it just there was nothing. I wasn't sat there going, we've revolutionized something. What we've done is we brought our Premier League form to the Champions League, which, as you say, doesn't always happen. We're sat there going, okay, well, we know what we're doing. We're going in a man-to-man press. We know where the right back will be. Once we get them down the line, Nuno Mendes is trying to play that pass. We know Timber's going to be up the left winger's arse. Pause. But he's going to be in on the duel. We're going to play forward. Gabriel and Saliba are going to sweep up, go back to Raya. Bob's your uncle. We know exactly what's going to happen. But we brought it to the Champions League, and that's what's so exciting. As you said, it's the kind of the Memby boys type situation, which is really, really nice. Yeah. Where else can we go with this? I
have some things to go really quickly. PSG have scored 51 consecutive group stage matches in the Champions League prior to this. Nothing. Limited to 0.27 xG. And there's a lot to say in terms of, I think, the debate, because PSG put out a lineup of technicality. They put out a lineup to dominate possession. They put out a lineup that was meant to take the sting out of the game and go to an away ground and impose themselves. They couldn't touch the ball. I think it's absolutely massive. And we sit there and we look at this team. Mate, we've had several starters missing. Let's make no mistake about it. Ben White, an absolute starter. Odegaard. Mikel Merino, who we've seen as a cameo, who looked undercooked, who looked like a person returning from injury. But this isn't a team that, for me, is even complete at this point, but they're playing complete football. And there was just a lot to like. Gabriel Martinelli, I think, is bubbling. The last couple games, I've really felt there's been a turn in his application and his verticality in terms of his decision-making. And yeah, mate, I have a lot to say because I just feel like this PSG team are no scrubs. TLC.
Yeah, they're not. And I think if you look at that midfield, I think it was clear what they were trying to do. They're trying to control the game, and they couldn't, even though Luis Enrique had said before the game that we are the best out of possession team in I think he said in Europe. He might have said the world, but I think you could argue they're the same thing. Yeah, look, we looked unbelievable. I also was pretty surprised by how conservative PSG were. I said on Twitter, PSG remind me of Rishi. You won't get this reference, but UK people, you will. Rishi Sunak, our old prime minister, super conservative, mega rich, and tiny. That was PSG this evening for me, in terms of the lack of bodies they put forward when they were attacking, in terms of their conservatism on the ball. They were recycling themselves. Barcola was getting out to the wide area. No one was attacking the box. I appreciate they were playing with a false nine. I couldn't really understand what they were doing. But it's because we looked really, really good. I was really pleased. A couple of negatives, only a couple, but I think it's not good analysis. I don't give you just say, oh, everything's brilliant. I was, especially the start of the match, I was worried about Raya going long a little bit too much. At times, I understand why he does it, and he does mix it up enough. It's always that sort of slider balance. I felt he was going long a little bit too much. And up until the goal, I wasn't sure. Look, I have to be honest. Before the goal, I was concerned about this. The goal goes in. I go, oh, of course, it makes complete sense. But I have to say what I felt. I did feel we were going sort of horizontal a little bit too much. Trossard and Havertz were sort of emptying the middle and going, basically taking away from their last line. With absolutely no one on their last line a lot of the time. I think it probably works against PSG. They're used to playing in that sort of jumpy, Mendes and Hakimi can just jump out, whatever. I wasn't sure it was going to work. I think on another night, I don't know how I feel about us just completely emptying the last line. It would, and I appreciate with Havertz and Trossard, that is the way they play. I was kind of waiting for someone to be a bit more of a reference. It's easy now at 2-0 to say, well, of course it worked. But on another night, I don't know. So that was my only two things. But yeah, otherwise, I thought we looked really good.
Just a different perspective, only because Hakimi and Mendes are probably the fastest fullback pairing in the world. And the only issue is they have Barcola and Doué who weren't tracking back. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Rayo is so vertical at points is because they're recognizing the space in behind, because the wingers weren't tracking back. And that was a real problem for PSG in the first half. In fact, I think there's a lot of times that we made quick switches. I'm kind of with you where I think he went long pretty much 90% of the goal kicks. Yeah. And I think that's where the issue, but I do think it was a tactic because the wingers from PSG weren't diligent tracking back. And so there was an attempt to kind of catch the space in behind, which was working brilliantly. And I think
probably what we were doing, by the way, with Havertz and Trossard pulling wide so much, but it's just, I don't know, another day. I don't know. Yeah.
And it could be, and look, this is maybe a game for that, right? Like, I don't think that that's like a long-term philosophy thing, but it's a game in which we were trying to isolate like a really poor thing from PSG. Yeah. But yeah, mate, I think in general, people worried about Timber. I really wouldn't worry. I think that was planned minutes. And it just shows the strength that we felt personally able to rest Yuri and Timber, who I felt has had a lot of minutes, especially coming back. There really wasn't anything that I felt like there was a big injury concern, but he was so good against Barcola, who, again, I'm not going to pretend to watch PSG every week, but he absolutely was the danger man that you had to be concerned with. And he didn't have a sniff. And that one tackle made in the first half where, Yuri and Timber recovers and then carries out, it was just beautiful. It was just textbook. Really beautiful. So yeah,
literally textbook.
Yeah, it was
unbelievable. I rewatched it a couple of times because someone posted the clip, and he turns to engage at the exact moment Barcola makes the action. It's that thing. They're waiting. Barcola commits, and he turns to engage. It's the timing on it. It's unbelievable. He's on his toes. He gives him the space and then engages. Didn't go too early. It's just, and then he does the thing where he stands and the sort of Declan Rice thing where you almost get the telescope leg out and you flick it around the. It's just textbook stuff. Yeah. Maybe want to talk the incidents before we go on to sort of individual players. I think there was some X account that had started going viral about has Saka scored a free kick? Well, he has now. What I loved about that was just before Gabriel's going like this to Saka,
to keep it down,
presumably keep it down.
And
someone made a good point that against a big kid, mate, Donnarumma. Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. Honestly, like that. Every time I watch him at the Euros, he was struggling. I don't know what's going on.
He struggles claiming in general. Like I think offset pieces, it was definitely something that people were going to be looking at.
It's just sort of flaps at it. It's completely bizarre.
Yeah.
It's really nice, isn't it, watching another team and be. We said this about United the weekend on the pod on Monday, like almost like diagnosing their issues because we know what is good from what we have. But I really want to talk about the Havertz goal. And the attack in the box, the sort of almost like the back of the head, like the way he just takes it almost like on the back of the head, and sort of the bravery of that. The ball in's lovely as well, and it's something we do a lot. Obviously, the ball to the back stick. So yeah, really, really nice.
My favorite thing is Havertz. The best thing about this performance was how aggressive his running was in the channels. And it wasn't just on the goal, like a brilliant header. And again, it's something that I felt like he struggled for the last couple of weeks. Bringing the ball under control was something that he was struggling with. But in this match, he was really good. Yeah, it reminded me of St. James Park, actually, ironically, like how aggressive he was, not just in the bite, in the tackle, in the channels. The way that he was overlapping on Bukayo Saka's side was incredible. I mean, in the first half, there's a couple times in which Bukayo Saka is able to slip in Kai Havertz for a brilliantly run by him. And it was just even that one pass in the 6-yard box where no one's gambling. I mean, I'm just thinking Raheem Sterling, and that's his favorite position to ghost into. And, you can just see the budding of, a really good relationship down the right-hand side. And I hate to toot my own horn. It's why I keep saying that there's an option to have Kai Havertz at right wing. Yeah, I don't want to see it all the time. But, the way that he floats in the right half space, the way that he's able to attack those spaces aggressively, it's something that he gives us in terms of the flexibility, but also when he's aggressive like this, mate, he's scary. And I don't think he's always like this, but the fact that he's sitting there doing it on big nights, he's a big game player. That's the one thing that I don't think anybody across his career can take away from Kai Havertz. That man is an absolute big game player, and I think it's brilliant. And the way that he attacks the header, I just want to praise it one last time because he isn't somebody that is consistently aggressive enough in his aerial duels. He gets his victory here for doing it. And Trossard with a really good drive. He had a little bit of a game of two halves for me. I think after he got knocked, he really fell off for me in terms of his performance. But that drive that he does for the goal with that cross into the half space is brilliant by Trossard. So, all in all, I'd say Kai Havertz had a brilliant game. Not quite my man of the match because I felt Thomas Partey had more influence in the middle of the park, but very close. I think if you chose Kai or Partey, for me, top two performers, and then along with Saka.
Yeah. I think on the Kai thing, just quickly on the right wing, it's like people go, oh, to do Saka's job? So, well, no, hang on a minute. No one said that. It's a different thing. And I think his combinations on that side are really, really nice. And the timing that he's finding with Saka in terms of releasing the ball in behind, he's making those runs. I remember this run. Was it Fabio Vieira? I can't remember who it was, but it's the run where you almost the defenders here, and if you're running off the back of them, you run by them and you give them also a little shove, and then you run round them, so you create some space for yourself. And Havertz does that really, really well. It's really, really nice. Second half is probably the only bit we should talk about before we get onto the sort of individual players. I mean, like, again, I don't want to complain about a 2-0 win in the Champions League, so it's not that. My only worry was if they got a goal, I imagine the narrative would have been, why have we sat back? Why have we done this? I didn't think we optimized our way in that second half in terms of what we could have done on the counter. But equally, we probably look at ourselves and go, look, out of possession, they're not getting near us. So, you know, what do we can do? If we can do that, if we can reserve some energy, if we can sit back a little bit and not worry too much about the counter, then fine. And it worked.
Listen, I thought both teams couldn't string together passes. It wasn't just an Arsenal thing. I mean, sure, Arsenal sat back and said, listen, we don't have any need to continue to press. The one thing, again, I really do think that Trossard's knock had an impact on his ability to really stay forward, because he was unable to really bring things together. And from that point, we sub in Jesus. And I think Jesus had the legs in the press, but again, it was poor in possession. And so it was a case of Arsenal not being able to string together their passes, which you can definitely critique. We could do better there. But again, I don't think that there was any issue in terms of Arsenal pushing forward, because they have a 2-0 lead. So they're going to say, listen, we'll stay in our block. We're happy to. And then we'll go on the counter. And I think Arsenal were comfortable in that sense. I don't think PSG ever really worried me. There were a couple moments. I mean, for example, the woodwork chance, which is just actually ironically off a set piece, in which João Neves, of all people, gets a good touch to it. But beyond that, I didn't feel that there was too many worries. I mean, there was moments, for example, the Rice pull down on, I believe it's called Omwani. There was that instance. There was some instances that you're stretched, but mate, this is PSG. They're an elite team.
There's going to be moments.
There's going to be moments, but I think for the most part, I was fairly comfortable. The only thing I'll say, I hate to do a little bit of a negative, but I thought Kivior struggled in the match personally in terms of coming in. He did okay to come in, but I do feel that he didn't judge his distances great. I did think he was a little bit panicked. He didn't look incredible. And of course, I still think Calafiori mentioned that there was moments where, for me, he was really good in possession, but again, a little bit over aggressive and relied on the recovery pace on the tackle. So I think mainly, if I had to look at it, I think Jesus could have improved in possession. And I think that Kivior, he did fine, but he definitely worried me a little bit in terms of his ability to get things under control, judge his distance as well. I think that was just something that he struggled with.
Interesting. I didn't see that, and I actually felt he was more confident in terms of his communication. I need to watch it back because I don't have an opinion on that, because I basically didn't watch for that. But I actually thought from my view of Kivior, I thought it looked fine, but interesting. People saying about my camera. I don't. I'm on both a wired connection and I have Wi-Fi, so it's. I don't understand. I don't understand how it's going somewhere. So it's probably my internet. Apologies. Let's move forward to some individual performances. Probably not loads to talk about with Raya. I think he had a pretty solid game and obviously claimed some nice crosses. Yeah. Timber we've spoken about a little bit. Saliba and Gabriel are just Saliba and Gabriel, aren't they?
I think that's Saliba. So brilliant in terms of his recovery tackle. But yeah, Gabriel for me really impressed me today. I thought he was brilliant, and he was brilliant in terms of recovery tackles, but so was Saliba. Like, there was moments, right, when we're on the stretch and Saliba's able to really calmly destroy counterattacks. I think those two alone, their presence intimidates. And so for me as a pairing, they're so reliable, mate. They're so reliable.
Yeah, no, they're so good. They're so good. I think they're part of the reason that teams don't commit bodies forward. Like, why would you put someone on the last line against Saliba or Gabriel if you have a choice? Like, I wouldn't do it. No chance. Like, I don't know how you break them down, but that's certainly not something I do. Calafiori, I thought Calafiori had a good game. I think I thought he was unlucky to get a yellow. To be honest, that felt like a classic referee going, there's an argument I haven't seen. You know, it's like when your parents go, you've had an argument with your sister or your brother or whatever, and then they discipline you both, and you're like, what? It's just because you didn't see it. And that is exactly what happened with Calafiori. He just got pushed and then just was like, what? But in terms of his performance, I thought it was pretty good. I thought he did wasn't probably as sort of influential as he was against Leicester, but that's a high bar. But he looked fine to me in terms of the overlap. I think in terms of the passing, he was fine. In terms of his off-ball movement, I think he's growing into it. The only moment that I worried about him was up against Hakimi, but again, that's an extremely high bar, and I think he dealt with it very well in terms of physically. He was still within touching distance. He still recovered. If I'm criticizing someone for not being able to keep up with Achraf Hakimi, I think I'm going a little bit too far. So I think he had a good game, Calafiori.
He did. I just think there's just moments still that he's got to iron out his defensive distances, because even on the Hakimi chance that you're talking about, it's because he gambles to go for an interception that doesn't quite work, but then relies on the recovery tackle, which he does brilliantly. So it's kind of a case of, it's more than fine. Like, the stuff that he gives you is incredible. And I mean, we all knew that he was going to be raw. So it's not like he's a complete player. There's no issues with that. Yeah. And I felt that in general, very composed in possession, especially when he switched to the right, which, by the way, I think it's the first time that really he's done that in his career. I can't remember seeing a time even for Bologna to do that. So impressive nonetheless. To switch angles like that and do it on the fly is brilliant. And he's so calm in possession, mate, that I just feel like what he gives us in build up is an outlet that breeds confidence and calmness. And that for me is really the incredible thing, even if he is a little bit raw in terms of judging his distances. But I still feel like when he is faced 1v1, he's incredible. Like, I have no worries about his defensive instincts. It's just judging that distance, and that's it.
Yeah, he's the sort of player who I was thinking about, and we saw that against City, didn't we? In terms of the rewatch, in terms of judging that space. But this is against the best players in the world. Do you know what I mean? It's completely understandable. I will say when he went on the right, there was a couple of times they got a pass through in that channel. But honestly, like, that's going to happen. You know, when you've gone outside, I don't think it was necessarily a him thing. He's sort of the player who you can add in a bit of that stallion now, because Gabriel has found his place, because he's found that sort of that calm, I think, Gabriel, and that consistency. If you had Gabriel in 2021 plus Calafiori now, you're asking for trouble. But because there's a bit more stability there and a bit more consistency there, I think you can add that in terms of the balance. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes on, and how that goes on with Merino as well, who we'll come to in just a second. Thomas Partey has his own defense league. I don't quite understand it. Anytime you say anything against, I said he gave a ball away on the last instant reaction, and I had a few comments saying I was criticizing him. So I want to say he's a brilliant player, and this evening he was absolutely brilliant, and I want to praise that. In terms of, you know, there was a moment where I remember thinking, like, there was a moment where he did actually give a ball away, but I don't mind it, because it was the perfect pass. It was the perfect intention. The ball came back to him. Martinelli was free in the channel because I think Hakimi had jumped, and he tried to play it. It didn't work. Those ones I don't care about at all, because those I'm like, that is the perfect idea. And if you keep doing that, at some point that will come off, because his passing is brilliant. Look, I thought out of possession, he stopped them. He was doing a lot of the running in the man-for-man press, and he was the one sort of stopping a lot of the balls into the midfield. He was brilliant there. I thought he had some brilliant passes, some nice balls out to Saka, some nice balls inside, some nice balls around the corner. Has stopped, didn't give as many balls away as he has in previous games. I thought he looked really, really, really good. So yeah, pleased with Partey this evening.
Yeah, like I said, rolled back the years at the top of the pod. I just felt like he had a brilliant performance anchoring the midfield. And you know what? There was also some arrogance back, to be honest with you, especially in terms of on the turn and the way that he was brushing the ball. There was just a confidence. And I'm just going to say to you, mate, like, when's the last time that Thomas Partey has been able to complete this many matches in a row for Arsenal, period? It hasn't actually happened in his Arsenal career.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I just think that part of the frustrations, I've spoken about this before, I think that people get frustrated because the Thomas Partey mistakes are so basic that it infuriates people, and it paints a wrong picture of his performance, because for 95 to 90% of the time, he's got an incredible in possession performance. Now, out of possession, we know that they're not physically the same player there. But again, I'm sorry, but we've got a lot of old men in DM that are like that as well. And it's not to the degree that I think people say. The only thing is because I think that you see such high-profile basic errors in possession, and you know what the ceiling is of this type of player in possession. But yeah, it's just, I really think that he's a joke when he's on it, and he's getting into rhythm. And again, people forget, I don't think that Partey's been in rhythm months, potentially even a year at this point. So it's really nice to see. And I mean, his midfield partner in Declan Rice, I thought, was brilliant in this match. Again, another person that I feel started the season slow, but is really gaining momentum right now. I mean, the energy that he shows is just a joke, mate. Like in the 90th minute, the ability to carry out a pressure like that. I think that Declan Rice, for me, took and will take a jump when he's able to anchor a little bit more and have the game in front of him, because there was just some times in the first half I felt he was so low touch. And just because Calafiori was so dominant in terms of coming into the pivot, it just pushed Declan Rice out of the block a little bit. And, that's just a natural rotation. But for me, I thought he was brilliant. Yeah, Declan really is growing. And I feel that when you start to add people like Merino and you start to get him back in terms of anchoring, that's going to be special.
Yeah, I think on Rice, in games like today, I don't like him higher, to be honest, and that pushes him a little bit higher. But I thought in the moments where he can drop deep and he can influence things, he looks really good. And we know once that all clicks together with Merino and Calafiori and so on and so forth, and Rice drops in, I think we are going to see something change. So we'll definitely talk about that in future pods. Let's talk Merino, who had his debut this evening. So congratulations, Mikel, if you're watching. A really, really assured debut. Look, I don't think it wasn't world changing, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my goodness me, revolutionized. I'm more excited about the future, but I will say some really nice duels. I look good, sort of tracking Zaire-Emery inside, and seemed to know his game in the press. The only thing I'll say, he looked a little bit overzealous. There was a couple of moments where, similar to Calafiori when he came on in pre-season, he wants to impress, so you can see he's jumping to his mark a little bit early, whatever. That's going to be ironed out. He's just excited, and that's absolutely fine. I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he looked really good. I think there's 3 or 4 moments where he cut the ball out and looked really, really solid. And yeah, I think the main thing is moving forward now, getting him in the team. It's exciting because, considering that I didn't even know he was in training till like 2 days ago or maybe even a day ago, to have him available to play 40 minutes, to come in, to potentially be available for Southampton this weekend, maybe play a half, maybe start at some point over the next few weeks, or maybe after international break, is a huge, huge boost. And yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about how Merino impacts Martinelli, because there was a couple of moments where he pulled out wide and I was going, here we go, boys.
Yeah, it's just that willingness. I mean, I still think that we haven't really seen Merino, and like you said, he's just he was happy to get on the pitch. You could tell that he was chomping at the bit, and there's a bit of that. One thing I love, Dill, is not just the duel. So when we talk about it, I think just his long legs and the ability to reach and snatch tackles away is something that we're going to see as he gets fitness and run in the team. I thought it was brilliant, and I think he's just in the right place at the right time. And it makes sense when talking about a player that's completed the most duels in Europe last season. So I think at base, it's going to be really exciting. And we just haven't seen 95% of what he's going to give us in possession. So I'm excited about the theory, and I can't wait to see it. But I thought assured performance. And definitely there was moments where he was trying to say, hey, guys, I know I haven't had my debut in a while, but this is what I'm about.
There's a couple of moments in the press where you could see, because like Martinelli was approaching his marker, Havertz was approaching his marker, and he was like right next to Zaire-Emery, like, right, mate. Like, okay, chill out. So I thought Merino had a good performance, and yeah, looking forward to seeing how he develops. Who else we need to discuss? We'll probably come on to Martinelli. I think we should do like a longer section on Martinelli at some point, maybe on the pod or maybe on Scouted or something, because I think we're going to talk a lot about Martinelli. So maybe let's not use up our 2 minutes remaining on Martinelli. We'll go over. Saka, we've discussed him a little bit. I thought, the confidence and the swagger, calling to the ref, amping up the crowd, all those little things, certain actions he takes, having those shots in the last couple of games. There's been moments he's picked up the ball. I'm going, you're going to have a shot, aren't you? You're going for it. And you can see that there's a little bit more confidence. There's a little bit more, I don't want to use the word arrogance because he's not arrogant, but there's an arrogance to his play in the sense of going, I know I'm better than you. And just in terms of how he retains the ball, in terms of how he approaches the duels, in terms of how he can receive from long. This is something I'm talking about in a new TDK video blog. Saka's someone who, yes, we think Raya's going long to Havertz, but he's also, because he's so strong, he can be the one who receives in kind of in a different way, and duel in a different way. His in-possession quality is unbelievable. His out-of-possession quality is unbelievable. But he's also one of the strongest wingers in Europe. And in terms of the way he approaches things, you hear all these stories about left backs and whatever, and they come to the Emirates, whether it's, Guerrero or whatever. And tonight it was Nuno Mendes. The first action, Saka does him. He just does him straight away, takes him on, does him. And I love that.
I just think he's becoming he's believing in his talent, and there's a level of just dominance that I've seen, especially versus Leicester. I can't believe nobody really highlighted how brilliant of a performance. It was a man of the match for me,
I
and then
think they did.
following it,
I think they did.
no, he wasn't even voted for man of the match by Arsenal, and I didn't see. For me, it was a stellar performance, one of the best that he's had in the shirt. And when you sit there and you start to look at what he's been able to do in the Champions League, it's incredible, mate. Again, like I said, 9 goal and assists contributions in 6 Premier League Champions League games. It's ridiculous. And I think Nuno Mendes is one of the best left backs in the world. And he sit there and he was toying with him. And I love this thing that I feel like Saka has mastered this ability to dangle the ball and turn on the gas once his opponent engages. And people are going to misquote this, but I see that with Messi, and it starts to really get me excited because he's really added that to his game, where I felt like before it was an efficient dribble, and now I'm seeing a lot more of an impudent dribble. And it's part of him growing in confidence. And I just think, for me, he is really starting to decide matches, not just in terms of sharp movement or sharp play and efficiency, but he's taking over a lot of our play and has for a while. For a weird part of this, I feel like sometimes we as Arsenal fans ironically underrate him. And, I think he's just somebody that's so brilliant, mate. Look, when you look at metrics and you look at him in the team, he will be number 1 every time. And yeah, we got to do better about propping up our boy, because some of the things that people say are not fair to him.
So you're saying Saka's better than Messi?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You heard it here first. Let's get to some stats before we come to your questions and close out the show. Thanks so much for being here. Nearly 2,000 of you watching live, which is crazy. Apologies about my camera earlier. I have no idea what happened, but hopefully it's fixed itself.
Give me the stat I want to see.
Well, 1.2 expected goals to 0.4, 6 shots to 10. I think a lot of this will come from I'd be interested in the second half compared to the first half. 29 final third entries to their 66, 19 progressive passes to their 20, 10 zone 14 touches to 26, which tells a story of execution and of sort of efficiency. There's the sort of running XG, but you're all waiting for it. There it is. We did lose on field tilt, so it's kind of no point even being here. We may as well just delete the channel, George. But I think you can see from the first half that was really where the game was won. And yeah, I just think in the second half, I think, as I say, there's another day where we're talking about how we threw it away, whatever. But equally, ultimately, you're making gambles in football. You're making decisions, and you're going, look, okay, we're weighing things up. If we go after them, whatever it might be, if we felt, and if we're having conversations at halftime going, look, we know they've got nothing for us in possession, then I'm more than happy to drop stuff back. And they didn't. So I'm genuinely fine with that. I'm fine. You're like, guys, listen to this. I'm fine losing on field tilt. Wow.
Sack him off in the comments, guys. It's just sacrilegious at that
what,
point.
Do what, sorry?
We're going to move on. I really think, like, with field tilt and stuff, for me, the biggest thing that I've got to talk about is that territory isn't enough. It's dangerous territory. And that has to be something that we can combine, really. And I just don't think that PSG were dangerous in the second half. They had just moments, but really, for the most part, I was never worried. And I think that the post-shot XG is going to show a very different story, particularly with that second half.
People are fuming in the comments. Absolutely fuming in the comments. Let's come to as many questions as we can before we close out the show. People are, I'm not going to read out some of these. We lost on field tilt. It's not Nicholas Yova. So you hate statistics. Yeah, all this stuff. Yeah, very good. Let's come to as many questions as we can before we close out. Yes, Jesus. Jesus is starting to become annoying with his greediness, says James, twice today and once against Leicester the last game. Get back to what you do best and work hard for the team. Otherwise, you're gone. My friend pointed out something very interesting. Can I show you? It might take me a second to get it up. But I hadn't seen this. And this is a bit tinfoil hat. But just what? I don't know if you can see this, but just watch Jesus' reaction. So this is when the goal goes in. I don't know if you can see that. When the goal goes in at the weekend, he doesn't celebrate. And I could be reading way, way too much into that. But that's a 97th minute winner at home in the Premier League. And he doesn't celebrate. I might be reading way too much into it. I don't know. And this is huge extrapolation, but the way when I watch him play and the conversations he's had before, you know, remember like sort of last year he was sort of doing that whole thing that we commented on, the boys need to learn, and you know, sort of slightly separating himself from the group. I wonder how he feels about his position. I really do, and stuff like that. I just go interesting. It's all adding to a.
Can I ask you, how would you feel if a 17-year-old came on instead of you to change the game? Now,
well,
by the way, it's the right
how
choice.
bad I am at football, George. I'll be quite happy.
But it was the right choice. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, from his perspective, that's going to play into it. And the one thing that I'm going to say is, I've said it for a while, Jesus is going to become a problem in terms of wasted resources. And I don't think that he helps himself with his inefficiency in possession. Look, there's a part of him that definitely can see himself losing his role in the team. And that can't feel nice. But then I think it actually does worse for him, because then it actually amplifies his willingness to do more things with the ball when he already does too much. And, you know, it needs to have the opposite effect. Like, I mean, he has to make his actions clean, sharp. And I think that's just, he's trying to do too much. He's lost his role in the team. He says, I need to impress because right now I'm not in the team. And I think it plays worse for him. The one thing I will say is that by bringing him on in this game state, he did his job in terms of the press. And I think that's the big reason that Arteta goes for him here and not, for example, for Ethan Nwaneri, that he can count on somebody in the Champions League to maintain that press, which is what he needed. So I actually agreed with the idea of the sub, but I do think just in possession, Jesus needs to just be calmer. And he actually, I think, needs to put a rule on himself and say, make the pass that is on. Stop trying to make sure that you just calm yourself, anchor yourself in this team, and then begin to add your personality. By turning into the personality too much, you're taking risks that you don't need to take, especially you know, for a team that is not asking for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's a couple of moments that this evening that exemplified that. I just think it must be hard. Obviously, it's hard from a human perspective to go to Man City, to never quite usurp Aguero, and then be seen as kind of the player that can probably go, even though you win stuff and you never feel like you're quite the main guy. You come to Arsenal, you are the main guy, absolutely. You get injured and it never quite comes back for you. That must be incredibly frustrating. I'm not saying that. But from a maturity perspective, and to be the leader that Arsenal need, we need him absolutely like coming on and being like, right, guys, I'm going to show you with my energy, with my aggression, with my press, with how I treat myself, with how I treat others, with how I approach every single game, whether I get 1 minute or 90 minutes. I'm casting massive aspersions on his character. It must be hard. I'm sure he's fine. But I don't know. I just, in the way he's playing, you can see, I don't think you can see that. And that's what I'm saying. So then I'm looking at the off-pitch stuff and probably applying that same lens. But if we just talk on pitch, you can see he's playing for himself a little bit. Eddie used to do it a little bit. Eddie used to come because he wants to, you know, show that he's the guy. But actually the really mature thing to do is come on and be exactly what the team needs you to be at that point. That's probably how you get yourself back in the team.
I just think fundamentally, if you're not doing well, like if I'm not doing well at work and I'm not doing my job, I do the basics right. And he's not doing the basics right. He's not doing the extravagant things right. And it leads to frustration from all parties, because then you're sitting there saying, well, okay, if you're not going to do even the basics right, then how am I going to trust you in a certain game state? And how am I going to trust you to turn games? And, you know, again, not only has he lost his place to Trossard, but he's lost his place as a super sub to Nwaneri. That must be difficult to take for a professional that left to be the man. And so from a human level, I understand the frustration, but from a pure coaching perspective, I really think that a lot of this is also on him. And individually, he needs to do better and take individual responsibility with the ball and care for it. Stop trying to treat it as an entertainment. So yeah, that's one thing that I'd say to him.
Mike, thanks for the super chat. Jesus looks unprofessional, like a kid. Yeah, and we can, you know, as I say, we can read into the off the pitch stuff all you want. And I think there's probably some evidence gathering there. But I would argue just look on the pitch. Literally just look on the pitch of what he's doing. And I think he is. unfortunately, a lot of the actions look like themselves. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. It's a kind of developing story, I think, with Jesus. So we'll have to watch that one. I will also say the referee tonight was fantastic because we talk about it all the time in the Premier League.
Incredible.
Saying they're trying to make themselves the main guy. Watch that. PGMOL, watch the referee in the Champions League, watch it at the Euros. That is what good refereeing looks like. I don't want to know their name. I don't want to see them in the game. I don't want to think about them ever again. That's their job. That's their job. They're referees. That's fine. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic this evening and some really good calls as well.
Yeah.
Let's finish off. Oh, we had this. I don't remember for Elements says Nindo. I love our defense. Marino and Kivior were great, says Nindo. Well, George hates you and disagrees. I don't know if that means you've given a super chat or you've just been a member. But either way, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Nindo. Let's finish off with 3 more. Let's do 3 more. Antoine says we move past Jesus and Martinelli. Need upgrading on. I will say the conversation around Jesus is the conversation around Martinelli is often a lot kinder than it is around other underperforming players. I will say that, but there's a lot more sort of hope with that, I would say. So I understand why it is kinder personally.
I feel a debate around 2 coming on with Martinelli that we're going to have. Yeah,
but this is the thing, and this is the thing with all debates. Is the problem is you go Martinelli's the only thing is the system. The only thing is the system, and I'm going. It's not only the system, but then you go, okay, so it's only himself. No, there's somewhere in the middle. We're probably both somewhere in the middle, just saying the same thing, really.
Yeah, I just think, especially in the last 3 games, he's taken a huge step up. Huge step up in terms of his application, his self-belief, and his decision making. That the biggest underperformer. Let me be clear. I will be very firm on one thing. Jesus is 100% the biggest underperformer in this team at this point, especially for the resources that we pay him and the wages that we do, and his expectation on the type of player he is. Martinelli screamed of somebody not in form. Definitely had individual things that he needed to work on, but also factually, this system has not supported him and was the least supportive system for left wingers in Europe. He was confirmed in stats that we don't use that and support that side. So for me, you can't dissuade that. And the minute that we see even a little bit of help from Calafiori, we see Martinelli have one of his best performances that we've seen in months. That's no coincidence. So for me, the Martinelli conversation, it will continue, but I actually think it'll die very, very soon, because with the introduction of Merino and Calafiori, again, I do think that people's commentary on it will change because of the spaces, and you could just see the starts of something. The only thing is get some confidence back and you look like a new player, right? I mean, Kai Havertz has gone through that confidence journey himself, and we've seen confidence play such a huge role in players before that it's definitely not something that I'm willing to just override.
No, for sure. For sure, and there was a couple of moments this evening where he got into really good positions. He didn't finish it off, but you know he's great. He's growing that confidence back. 2 more. Let's come to Mars Lewis Spaghetti. Your boy got his Champions League debut. Is that before Ethan?
It was.
Wow.
It's because he's better.
Wow, because he's better. Wow. Yeah, Mars Lewis Spaghetti came on. Very exciting. And also came on at left wing.
Yeah, I think it was more of just like a defensive tactic
moment.
Yeah. But you know what? I think in general, what I just love is that these boys are getting minutes, mate, and they're graveyard minutes, but they're getting minutes. And I think it really starts to speak to Arteta's trust in these kids, because I think that at this point, I'm looking to them as full members of the squad, and I'm looking at integration. I'm not looking at any loans. So for me, really excited. I will say I was calling for Ethan Nwaneri to replace Trossard at the start and of the second half, and I just felt like there was an opportunity there. I hope it's because we're saving Ethan for Southampton. I really do, because his performance deserved reward. Let's put it that way.
Yep. And I can see him working against Southampton. I watched him against Bournemouth last night. I could see it working. Final one, could still use a Seshko. And yeah, there's going to be days in the same way that we spoke about in the summer There's going to be days where our lovely not occupying the last line, drifting in at the back post. There's going to be a couple days where that doesn't work, and we're going to be calling out for a reference, a proper box reference, and we're going to be calling out for some proper, say with me, George, transitional inevitability. And yeah, I can't deny that. And there will be days like that, and we're going to be sounding some reactions going, do you know what we could have used today? And that's just is what it is. But the reason it was such a big problem is because City still had Rodri, and I wasn't sure when the investigation would be coming out. So,
yeah, I definitely still think that we need something. For all the things, I will repeat, we did a whole scouted on Šeško, and as much as I absolutely love his ceiling, he's also another player that isn't going to be the player that you want for a couple years. And so it's a case of, do you buy into, because Kai Havertz has done more than just a serviceable job at this point in center forward. He's legitimately been able to carry a lot of what Arsenal need. He's still not, I would say, perfect, but I mean, at the same token, you can't deny the numbers and his impact, right? And so Arsenal may be looking at it with a case of, well, I can afford to buy this forward that will become the thing that I need when I've already got such great baseline performance in a prime age player that I've invested in.
Yeah. Kai Havertz is just the fourth player in Arsenal's history to score in each of their first 5 home games in a season, after Jimmy Brain, elite ball striking, Cliff Bastin, and Doug Lishman against Wolves, Brighton, Bolton, Leicester, and PSG. The first person for 70 years. Yeah. But, you know, I'm looking at Jesus and I'm going, it's that squad role, that squad slot, and that resource slot. Yeah, there could be something there.
Napoli
Right.
swap deal.
Hey guys, we'll finish there. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We're here for half an hour after every single Arsenal game. We are back tomorrow with a very interesting podcast, which will be revealed tomorrow. We're back with an instant reaction on the weekend. Loads of stuff going over on the Cannon podcast, Patreon, and you can also join as a YouTube member, but you can join on Patreon on a 7-day free trial. Why should people join, George, if they're looking for a pitch?
You just get to see more of this.
That is, do you know what? That's the only pitch you need. That's the only pitch you need. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the Cannon Podcast on YouTube. You can also get these on Spotify and Apple. Leave us a review. I don't think anyone's left us a review yet, or maybe I have on like a false name or something.
But a nice one, please.
A nice one. Yeah, ideally a nice one. Thanks everyone. Appreciate it, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.